Kyle, and I am out here at Indian Beach on the Oregon coast. Today's Tuesday, June 29th, and we're going to do the Astrology Report for the upcoming week. It's quite beautiful out here, a bit windy, so I hope it doesn't mess up the audio too much. I'm going to jump right into this Astrology report with some ideas on some aspects that are coming up. So some intense stuff coming up. We have July 4th, 5th, and 6th are going to can be pretty intense with some of the aspects, because leading up to it on July 7th is a what's called a Mayan Burner day, and so that's in the 260-day Tzolk'in cycle. If you quarter it into 4, it's kind of like the seasons, or north, south, east, and west. They become kind of like pressure points, or points of pressure that build up, and then on that particular day, given it's either the day before, that day of, or the day after, there's kind of a release collectively of something that occurs. This one's going to be referred to as 4 sun, or flower, or ahu. So, this one isn't particularly one of the ones that you see things happen in a sort of outward or explosive or dynamic kind of way. This can be a positive one, but in a way, it can come across as a point in time when people kind of after the 7th feel sort of a release of some kind of pressure collectively of something that's building up. So some of the aspects through this time period are Mars opposite Saturn on the 1st. We have Mars trine Chiron on July 2nd. So there's a lot of Mars energy going on. There's Vesta opposite Neptune on the 2nd. And then on the 3rd, we have Mars square Uranus. And that's basically making a fixed T-square. That's basically happening between Mars, Saturn, and Uranus. So Saturn and Uranus are square, and that's creating a larger, more collective dynamic energy that's happening right now between the past and the future, where we've been and where we're going. And then Mars is in there with that T-square, and it's basically like, how are we going to do that? How are we going to enact that or employ it, put it into action? And we also have the Sun sextile Uranus on the 5th, Mercury square Neptune on the 6th. Then we have some Venus stuff going on. Venus opposite Saturn on the 6th. We have Vesta trine Pluto on the 8th, and then we have Mercury moving into Cancer on the 11th. Oh, I missed it. We have a Venus square Uranus. I believe I think that's on the 9th. No, that's the 8th. And then later we have a Mercury trine Jupiter on the 12th. So let's jump into some of those heavy aspects and kind of what they mean. Some of the theme that I wanted to bring forth today, because this is an upcoming new moon in Cancer at 18 degrees 2 minutes of Cancer. It happens on the Mayan day 6 wind, and that's 6:16 p.m. Pacific time. And some of the theme and the idea of the energy that I wanted to bring forth is the idea of in utero. And I'm not talking about the Nirvana album. I'm talking about the idea of the principle of gestation. I'm talking about the womb. I'm talking about the container, which supports growth and which leads to birth. And it's, it's the idea of nurturing. It's the idea of the mother. And it's also there's a relation to Neptune and the ocean, and that's why I'm out here at the ocean today. And it's turned out to be a beautiful day to be here. So it has the element of nurturing and fostering of life and great sensitivity. So the idea of in utero, and it's the power to disappear and essentially become no one. And the bravery, or the kind of the warrior spirit that is necessary in order to do so. I was thinking about the idea that, so Cancer, and it's more mundane, or in a collective sense on the lower level, can represent the collective or the masses, or kind of like the herd instinct. And it can represent the ability of people to be very conditioned and to do what they were conditioned to do. And in a lot of ways, when it comes to mass consciousness, it has to do with replication, and it has to do with repeating. It's kind of the monkey see, monkey do. It's repeating what other people have done before, or going with something that is kind of a safe bet, because there's that fear, kind of like the crab, of moving out of its home or its shell or its periphery into the unknown, into the great expansive infinite ocean. And what comes with that is the danger of moving into new territory. That's kind of where we get the concept of alien, and we see that so strongly in humanity. The fear of the unknown, the fear of what is different, the fear of people that look different, that talk different, that have different customs. We've seen so much of that, especially in America over the last couple hundred years. Anybody who's been alive, you've probably seen it and recognized it within your lifetime. And so it's that fear of the unknown and what is different. And it translates to our concept of UFOs, the long-held idea of is there life on other planets or in outer space, and everything that comes along with it story-wise. But it's that fear of, what is the unknown out there? And, mass humanity responds to it usually with fear. And there's a lot of projection and a lot of stories that are illusionary, that are built around it because it's based in fear. It kind of makes me think of, where am I going with this? I'm talking about astrology here, but it's the Cancerian mass consciousness. It's like, people that sort of develop their identity with things that are around them, with materialism or objects, or if you think about kind of like high school consciousness, many people go through a process of conditioning that they never really truly leave behind. They take that kind of high school consciousness and they project it onto a larger territory or a larger arena, even though they may think that they've grown out of it and that they've grown into individuation or unique individuality. It's almost as if they've just sort of grafted it onto a larger arena, a larger landscape, and then told themselves that they're doing something different. And so, it's the idea of the power to disappear and become no one, because in that sense, losing yourself in the ocean of, the water signs, Cancer, Pisces, and just kind of like, it's that freaky danger of infinity, that fear of the expansiveness and the loss of control. Cancer is opposite Capricorn, and Capricorn, both those signs are on the same axis, and it's, the security axis of wanting to have security and control. So, it's that idea of moving into nothingness. We try to achieve that. I don't like to use the word achieve, so in conjunction with meditation, we choose to move into the silence in meditation to quiet the mind, so that we can reach a place that has not been conditioned, a place that we have not identified with, because it's a deeper part of ourselves that's connected with soul and that's connected with spirit and source. And so when we do that, we're able to connect with that deeper, more infinite or eternal aspect of ourselves. And it's the idea, it's basically saying, I am a million faces, yet I am no one at all. It's kind of saying, I am everyone, yet I am no one. It's saying, I am the ocean, yet at the same time, I am the raindrop. So it's the differentiation between identity and our true roots or oneness. And Cancer definitely has to do with our roots. Roots, family, the source of where we come from. And, so I want to work with that idea. It's the idea of the invisible man or the invisible woman, because it takes the ability to leave fear behind, or bravery, to move into that nothingness or that silence. It takes that just all-out courage to move into the unknown or into unknown territory. And that means leaving our conditioning behind and actually entering our true aspects of individuation, as opposed to just kind of going along with what the mass consciousness wants us to do, because it's safer and because you don't have to risk being exiled, ridiculed, told that you're wrong, so forth and so forth, because you're expressing different ideas or new things or things that are kind of outside the box. So it's a good time to move into that silence and work with being okay with being outside of the norm. Yet you may experience some anxiety in doing so, because mass consciousness is like mass currents in the ocean. You can't really fight them, and the point is not to fight them. It's sort of to flow with them. You don't want to swim against it, so to say, but maybe sort of crossways to it. So, it's kind of like the idea of a whirlpool, and that you don't want to fight it. You want to let it take you all the way down to its most bottom point, so that it naturally just kind of spins you out of it, instead of, you don't want to fight it, or else you'll tire yourself, which won't be good. So I wanted to put that idea forth, Cancer and the idea of gestation. So let's talk a little bit about the new moon in Cancer. It happens on July 9th. This is cardinal water, so it's initiating, it's emotional, it's sensitivity, it's psychic. And, a cardinal sign. The esoteric ruler of Cancer is actually Neptune. So we're used to the traditional ruler, which is the moon. And that is representative of personality. So in Cancer, we could, that's why I talked about everything that I just talked about, is that for mass consciousness, in a way, there will be a gravitation towards the moon, or the personality energy. And the moon, represents that which is old, that which is fixed. It's almost a symbol of that which is dead. It's kind of like, the old shell of the crab, or it's kind of like, the old shed skin of the snake that was left behind. So it's a representation of, old patterns that have been locked in, and that can be definitely beneficial and useful, yet if we hold on to it too tightly, we'll never really break new ground, we'll never kind of individuate or go anywhere new. So the idea with this is to go to the esoteric ruler, which is Neptune. And that's why I'm here at the ocean today, and that's why I'm talking about Cancer and the ocean. So this new moon is sesquiquadrant Jupiter. That can denote a bit of, it can denote an excess of out of balance, or over optimism with wanting to move in a new direction. So there can be some paranoia, or some glamour around moving in a particular direction that doesn't end up really being exactly what it is. The new moon is sextile Uranus, so we have some excitation around kind of fostering and nurturing something new and unique, and that's where I'm talking about making the choice and choosing to move in a new and unknown direction. So this new moon is trine Neptune. So there's, it's basically the new moon is trine its own esoteric ruler. So there's definitely an invitation to work with the higher energies at the time of this new moon and for the upcoming month. And it's, like we said, moving into more expansive, open-mindedness, more inclusiveness. Being that Neptune is the higher ruler, it has to do with the heart. It has to do with like the inner source of love and wisdom. And, if you think about it, boundlessness, just as the ocean, moving into, it's taking the conscious and expanding it. So it's making the conscious known. Kind of like we talked about a little bit there. So, there's a lot of aspects going on at the time of this new moon. We have new moon quintile Vesta. There's an element of purification, and I'll get more into that here in a minute with the upcoming Mayan 13-day period of Quake or Earth. This new moon is biquintile the south node, so there's an element of creative and magical employment of the past instead of getting stuck with it. Using what we know in the past as sort of a landmark of where we need to not get stuck so that we can actually keep our eye fixed on the future and go forward. So at the time of this new moon, there is a grand fire trine, and that's between Chiron and Aries, Venus and Mars, which are basically coming to a conjunction a few days after that, in the sign of Leo, and then the south node plus Juno and Sagittarius. So there's an element of healing. There's an element of the masculine and feminine coming together. So it's a very potent, creative healing time. And if we look at that, Chiron in the cardinal sign of Aries is initiating the idea of healing. Venus and Mars in the fixed sign of Leo wants to sustain a new harmony between the masculine and the feminine, between the heart and the mind, or between the heart or the love energy and the will energy. And so, we're coming to a new level with everything that's been going on over the past year and a half. And when Mars and Venus conjunct, and I'll probably talk more about that in the next report, but it's a new beginning. It's creating, it's finishing up old conflicts, bringing them to resolution, and then it's starting a new cycle. It's basically, creating that harmony. Well, it's kind of a harmony through conflict. The eternal struggle and conflict between the masculine and the feminine, and all the drama that happens therein. And they're conjuncting for a whole new cycle, and they're doing it in the sign of Leo. So which is definitely more heart energy. So I see this as a period of time of opening the hearts, opening our hearts, and doing it in a collective way, in a way that resonates as, it doesn't have to necessarily be the group or groups, although that's a theme right now with humanity. But if you look at it inwardly for yourself, it's sort of bringing your own masculine and feminine together. It's working with your own inner duality and your own conflict, and trying to work with bringing resolution and harmony in some sort of way between your own personal conflicts inwardly. And then we have that South Node in Juno in Sagittarius, the mutable aspect of it. Once again, that's using our past as kind of like a signpost, a directional. We have our roots in our past, but we don't want to get stuck there. We have our conditioning, we're aware of it, we want to move beyond it. We have, Juno's in there, we have our ideals, what we're dedicated to. You think of the idea of devotion, or even, patriotism or dedication to something. Well, it's time to, I guess it could go both ways. Let go of old devotions or things that are no longer serving your path moving forward, or to commit and strengthen your devotion to ideals that are moving you in the direction that you want to go. So I guess it could work both ways in that sense. There's a yod at the time of this new moon in Cancer. This yod is between the South Node in Juno and Sagittarius, that we just talked about, sextile Saturn in Aquarius, and then they are both, that creates the base, right? And then they are both in conjunct to Vulcan, and basically the new moon by about 8 degrees. So that new moon is actually in there, but Vulcan is the exact point that it's bringing it to. New moon being in Cancer. So Vulcan as the main point, it points to cardinal energy. Vulcan in Cancer, and Vulcan is the higher esoteric ruler of Taurus. I believe, looking at the chart, there is actually, so Vulcan is the point of that yod, and there's a sextile from Vulcan to Uranus. So a lot of this time is about, it's going to be about really intense change, really intense movement, shaking things up quite a bit. Different ways you can go about it, but the idea is to be one of the movers and the shakers of the world. I forget what it is. It's Arthur O'Shaughnessy said, we are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams. And then he ends it with, yet we are the movers and the shakers of the world forever, it seems. So, this is definitely a very Uranian time, especially with the Mayan 13-day period of Earth, or Quake, that's coming up. And it's definitely a time to take the past, it's that South Node and Juno and Sagittarius, and are holding on to the past and are holding on to our old devotions and learning to sort of let them go. And then there's that sextile to Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn in Aquarius right now, square Uranus. Saturn is moving through the challenge of laying the tracks of the future. Saturn naturally is conservative and wants to hold on to the past, to the orthodox, to, it wants things to stay the same. But in Aquarius, it's able to get like a bird's eye view, a very expansive view. I mentioned the whole in utero thing in the beginning, and that it doesn't have anything to do with Nirvana, the band. But I do remember one of the songs by that band, the lyrics are, take a stop outside the city and take a look at what you are. It's pretty scary. And he says, take a stop outside the planet and take a look at what you are. It's pretty scary. And it just kind of keeps going. And it's that idea of that Aquarian expansive view, that genius view that's able to be the observer and go up on the balcony and look down upon the stage, except the balcony for Aquarius is like the satellites. It's like way up there looking down at the Earth. And in that sense, it's futuristic and bringing the new in. So Saturn's going through that process right now of crystallizing the future, of bringing new future-like structures in. You know, I don't really want to look at the square between Uranus and Saturn as like a battle, like a lot of people do. I see them very much so working together. They equally need each other in that sense. So with, you know, Vulcan being the point, you know, I see a lot of very intense material change. You know, Vulcan is the hammersmith of the gods, kind of brings the hammer down. It's basically, you think of like magma or lava, which is like liquid earth. It's like, you know, a combination of minerals and gases, you know, sulfur, and it's basically like, it's flowing liquid earth, liquid crystal, liquid rock. And, you know, this symbolizes a very intense time. So moving on, we're moving into the 13-day period of Quake for the Mayan Zolkin calendar. This period lasts from July 4th to July 16th. The midway point is 7 house. Then the 9th day is 9 snake. It balances out with the day 11 deer. And then its culmination point is 13 water. So there's a resonance there, water. The ocean, and the ability to be fluid, and that basically all of that stuff moves toward the idea of movement and change. You know, it's that Vulcan at the point of that yod. It's extreme change, whether it's material or otherwise. And we think about it, not all change is material. We have emotional change. You know, we feel different about things as we grow. Or mental change. We open ourselves to new ideas, and we let go of old beliefs that no longer serve us. So this is a time of great change. And, you know, the 13-day period of Quake can have to do with healing through sudden shock or enlightenment or awareness. So it can basically bring new things into view that were hidden from us before. But it's this 13-day period of Quake is all about change, movement, and transmutation, and it has to do with power and wealth. It can have to do with, it's a very Uranus-Pluto signature, and it can manifest basically like lightning or like an earthquake. So I have no interest with astrology in making predictions, especially doomsday style predictions, and I know a lot of people are attracted to that kind of shit. And, you know, I don't really care if it doesn't get me more views or whatever on the internet to not actually predict that stuff. But the symbolism of this 13-day period is, it's symbolic of an earthquake, or, you know, the shaking of the earth, or the lightning striking. So it's very Uranian, and it's about things that happen suddenly. It's about things that wake us up, or things that sort of put us in check, and that we have to take action on and figure out right away. There's an element of obsession and amalgamation. You know, it's like when lightning strikes or something gets so hot, there's an amalgamation, a melding together, a mixing together of minerals. It's kind of like, once again, that magma or that lava. And that's Vulcan. It's kind of like alchemy, or you know, it's the melting of metals and then the shaping of them into new forms, like making a sword. And so we're in the process right now of breaking things down and making new forms. You know, we'll say that we're, you know, you can say you're making a sword, you can say you're making a baby. You can say that you're making a grand piece of art or a new piece of music. So it's a very powerfully creative time. And it's a great time to nurture those creative abilities that are coming forth. It can also be a time of destruction. You know, when these things happen, you know, when there's lightning or earthquakes, it's kind of like it's leaving rationality, order, and the preconceived or the rational mind in a state of ruin or shock. And out of that ruin or shock grows basically the most beautiful flower. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like destruction, maybe after like a volcano or something or whatever, and then you see like a beautiful flower growing out of it. You know, it's kind of like flowers grow out of shit. Beauty that comes from something that we consider not wonderful or great. And it's kind of, that's just the, the dual process of life and death and nature itself. So, it's the idea of the third eye of vision in its destroyer phase. And it's the idea of destruction on the behalf of a greater construction. The idea of the taking down of a structure for something greater. So, it can be a time of structures coming down, whether that's physical structures, whether that's emotional structures, whether that's ideas. And it's to make way for new structures, whether physical, emotional, or mental. So anyway, this time will be a time of great change. I'll stick with that. This will be a time of great and powerful change. That was fun to say. So like I said, destruction on behalf of a higher construction. And it's not really just mere anarchy for the sake of anarchy or chaos or disorder. That's the kind of perspective that seeks to destroy for the sake of just destruction, based on one's lower tendencies, selfish tendencies, with a lack of love or wisdom involved. So this 13-day period has an element, a vibe of fasting. So it's fasting and purification. And fasting puts the body under mild stress, which makes our cells adapt by enhancing their ability to cope. In other words, they become stronger. They adapt. They become more resilient and stronger. And this process is similar to what happens when we stress our muscles and cardiovascular system during exercise. The idea is to push ourselves. There's an element of challenge, uncomfortableness, or even possibly pain, but yet it creates a higher degree of resilience and strength. As with exercise, our body can only grow stronger during these processes when there is adequate time to rest and recover. So, it's a period of sort of activeness or shock, and then recovery. And it's pushing oneself beyond one's boundaries and limitations, like we talked in the beginning of this report. Because you have to do that. You have to grow. You have to challenge yourself every day. And, not get stuck in the conditioning, especially of mass consciousness. So, in a way, this 13-day period, or this time of from the new moon to the full moon, can bring up crisis. And what we think of crisis, in a way, crisis doesn't have to actually exist as we think of it. Crisis is really just a transitional period. It's the ego, or the part of us that identifies, it's the part of us that's been conditioned to respond to it in a freaked out, fearful way. Therefore, crisis. But, when we see things from a higher perspective, it's not actually crisis, it's transition. And like we said, it's on behalf of developing into something more beautiful, or, a higher construction after the fact. So it's really a matter of perspective. And, when that happens, it can be for our greatest good or greatest benefit. It's kind of like, you ever think about the things that may have happened in your life that were extremely challenging, and at the time you thought, you were going through total hell, and you may have been. But you give it some time, give it 10 years or whatever, and you kind of look back and you go like, as difficult of a time as that was, it was also beautiful in a way. And you might say to yourself, I would never really take that back, because it contributed to not only making me stronger, but ultimately it helped to reveal more so who I truly have come to be. And that's extremely important, that we more and more come to recognize who we truly are, as opposed to our identity or our conditioning. So crisis is what we deny and don't take responsibility for, if you want to look at that. It's the denial of strife. Does that sound familiar? We're talking a little bit about Eris there. So, we don't, the part of the story is she wasn't invited to the party. We don't invite that kind of energy into our lives because we're afraid of it and we're afraid to lose control. And that causes us stress and strife. So the root meaning of crisis is a decisive point in the progress of a disease or dis-ease. So it's a point which indicates either recovery or death. A point where we must discriminate wisely and judge, and distinguish the path which we must take in order to move forward. So it's about making a real decision. It's about being in the heart. This period of time can be a time of, moving through a lot of that, and it exposes where our hearts truly are. So, if you sort of keep certain things, especially like heart-related, secretive, it can be a time where that gets revealed in one way or another. So it's that shaking. If you think about it, it's kind of like sometimes the earth, when the earth shakes and it opens up, it reveals old treasures of the past, or, you know what I mean? The riches of the earth come forth out of the shaking or the ruin of that kind of thing. And so it's, the key through some of this energy is not to panic, not to go into, any kind of paranoia or panic, but it's basically to hold your center as much as you can, or to move with it, staying balanced and staying focused. And so that's calling in, the willpower, in the sense. It's kind of calling in a trust that where you're going you will actually get there, no matter how turbulent the waters or the ocean is. Great time to attempt to do fasts, even if they're like a small fast, or longer ones if you know how to do that. Basically just sort of a cleansing out or purification. And it can also be a time when we generally think of like fasting or purification as sort of an illumination of something. Sometimes it can actually be introducing something that we don't normally do. Like if you don't normally drink, for instance, potentially getting drunk one night with some friends or something can be sort of a clearing out or a detoxification of emotion. Or, you kind of get that kind of idea. So unlikely ways or shocking ways of purifying and renewal. So, this is a time about, shaking things up, and it's also a time about grounding, and the symbolism, the esoteric symbolism is to take that which is in the intuitive or, the heavenly realms and bringing it down. It's the aspect of creativity and grounding it. So there's some Saturnian energy in there as well. Because when we ground it to the earth or the physical realm, it's basically making it real. So it's about taking your ideas and grounding them and making them real. Anyway, my name is Billy Kyle. Much love to you. If you like the content, feel free to check back. I'll be hopefully putting up a video per week. Do the whole thing, subscribe, like the videos. Next week we'll talk a little bit about the Mars and Venus conjunction and a little bit about that new cycle. So otherwise, be well and stay healthy and have a great time. Bye-bye.